It's you're making a choice and then you have limited energy. So when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And then are you okay with what you're saying no to?
I'm your host, Sha Hurley. Each week, I invite a conscious leader in tech, sales, and beyond to share their inner journey, how they overcome obstacles, how they achieve success while staying true to themselves, and above all, what makes them human beings. I hope those authentic conversations serve as an inspiration for you as you continue your own inner journey of self-discovery, healing, and mastery. Hi, Somya. Well, welcome to the podcast show. Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your inner wisdom with us. I know we're going to talk about triggers, which is the topic that I've been thinking about nonstop. Not like nonstop 24 hours, 7 days, but it comes up so often because I get triggered easily in personal and professional life. But before we dive right in, I would love to, have you to introduce yourself in a way that makes you, right? So whether that's your title, whatever that make you feel like this just represents me, Somya, and let's go for it.
Yeah. I think it's so hard, right? Because I feel like when I introduce myself or you put a brand or a name around yourself, like, am I only that? So it's so hard to say, wait, I'm an accountant by profession, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. You think of all these things like, but I'm sometimes like, no, I'm a yogi, I'm a hiker. So I guess it depends how I'm feeling that day. Today, I think what I'd like to say is I'd like to share or introduce myself as, I've been working in the tech industry now for over 15 years, if not longer. It's been an interesting journey. I've seen myself change from the day I started to the way I am now. Yoga, hiking, etc. were all things that I picked up as part of this journey. So I'm a people manager. So lots of experiences that come from there too. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's actually the least favorite question I get every time when I meeting new people. Like there's so many different versions. I can tell you my titles. I can tell you how much time do we have, right? Like how much do you want to tell me? So
where do I live? Where do I come from? I was just thinking like, I forgot to say all those things.
Yeah. And you are from India originally.
I am. Yes. And I think I still say that. People ask me like, where you from? It's funny when we go on vacations. My daughter was brought up here. So it's funny. I'll always say India and she says America. So people look at us like, where are you really from? But I always introduce myself saying I'm from India, even though I probably lived longer here than India.
Okay, I have a question since we're going to talk about figures. Do you ever feel triggered when your daughter said that she's from America instead of India?
No. I mean, I get triggered about a lot of things. Not that. No. Okay. I think it's just, for me, it's just interesting how we identify ourselves. So,
yeah.
So, yeah.
And just right before we hop on this recording, you and I chatted about Wisdom 2.0. And there's one session I really wanted to tune into. And because of the slide on the stage saying, who are we without the stories we tell ourselves and then others? I think sometimes we stuck in our head in terms of who we are and we rationalize a lot of things. If we get rid of the stories, who am I? I think that's such a good question we can all kind of think about. I don't even know think about is the right word, because if we keep thinking, we're still stuck in this headspace, right? Like that's not the intention of the question.
Yeah, and I think, Shah, even if we take it further, right, like when you say story, is it a story that you're crafting for yourself? Is it a story based on expectations of somebody else of you? So I think like that matters too. Like, yeah, I could write a story for myself, but there's expectations of me that I need to abide by. And is that the story? When I'm saying I'm a mother, what does it mean, really? When I say, I'm working in tech, I'm a yogi, what does it mean? So we've seen there's so much debate even around that too. But you said you've been thinking about that a little bit. What's going through your mind? I'd like to actually hear that.
Well, turning the table around. I love that question because I think it's, like as human beings, we constantly, at least myself, constantly think, why am I here on earth? What am I here to do or to be? And it's just philosophical question I get to ask myself, and without thinking about what potentially I can create for this world and how possibly, like I can create value in a way, because I think in the corporate world, we're all trained to like look at our strength, what value we can bring into the table. And so in exchange, we get monetary rewards, whatever return to prove our worth. And the more I look at that, the more I start to question whether I wanted to put myself in that box. And then the answer was no. So if not putting myself in the box, and that put me on a different path of who am I without all those labels, we put on ourselves growing up, like, oh yeah, top 3 students in class.
Yeah.
Sha, who went to USC for a master degree, and, president of the student club, and in Google, like this person, that person, all the labels. And that was in the past, right? But like as we continue the journey and thinking about what decisions we want to make, who we want to marry to, who we want to spend our time with, where we want to spend our time at, those labels sometimes can be the roadblocks, like her saying this story, you're a good storyteller because I can tell you're thinking about what the audience wanted to hear. And I'm more selfish in a way. I'm like, I don't care about the audience, so it's all about like, I want to tell this story. If they want to tune in, they can stay here. If not, they don't have to be here. But I think a good storyteller would, like you yourself, you would need to like understand, what's in it for the audience.
Yeah.
So I know we're talking about triggers today. It's like, the moment when at least for me, and I wanted to hear your thoughts too, the moment I know that I'm healed is I know whatever used to trigger me, it does not trigger me anymore.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And I know you and I talk about, some of the personal experiences being triggered at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper into that if you're...
Yeah, I think, and somebody was asking me, when did it happen? I was like, I don't think there was a switch. I don't think it was a moment of like, now this happens. I think it's over a period of time, lots of different experiences, listening to a few things. But I think for me, I went through a phase when I was just so angry. So everything would just make me angry. And like, why am I angry? And I think what's changed dramatically for me is I can almost sense something happening. It's not necessarily anger, but you're like, oh, I feel sad. So I'm able to almost like give it a feeling or a name for that, to say, I can see I'm getting angry. And my first thing is, it's almost like a list of questions that goes through my head. It's a lot quicker when it's in my head than when speaking it. I'm like, what's going on? And you pause and you're like, oh, you know what? I'm hurt. Why? Oh, it reminds me of that. Or I'm telling a story to myself. I know you said this because you actually mean this, because you don't love me or because you don't care for me. Then I'm going through my head like, is it a fact or is that a story that I'm telling myself? Or is it based on past experience? Because this is what happened in the past. And so that's coming back to you. So very quickly, if you can pause. The second thing I've noticed is that none of those are really working. It's like, oh, because I wanted Shah to do this. And because I had an expectation of Shah that did not meet my expectation, it's upsetting me. And it's very interesting to see. So you want somebody else to act a certain way so that you can be happy. So everybody around you, so as long as things go exactly as you plan, you're going to be fine. But if people don't act the way you want to, then you're angry. And I like, that for me was such a realization to be like, how dependent are you on somebody else's action for your own happiness or your own peace of mind?
Oh my God. That's Somya dropping some inner wisdom. I knew it. And God, yeah, it's like the control we wanted to have for everything. Funny, yesterday I was literally triggered by my husband because I've been working on myself, my own emotions for a long time. And then so yesterday, I also have this very rigid schedule. Like, I eat 6 p.m. the latest. If it's later than that, I get angry. I get triggered. So
oh my God.
He's more flexible, right? Like he eats whenever he get hungry. And I told him many times, when I get hungry and I don't eat, I get angry. and remember that. So my expectation was he would remember that, right? Like never really, he would just like show up and apply to whatever makes me happy. So yesterday, what happened was I was working on my own thing and he was working on his thing. And then I think both of us were in a flow state and we forgot about time working. And 8:30 p.m., I realized no one mentioned about dinner yet. And my sleep schedule is about to come up. So, because I also try to sleep early. And all of a sudden, I get really angry and I get triggered. I'm like, wow, he didn't remember that I needed to eat at 6 p.m. So I try to be calm because I'm realizing I'm being triggered. I talk to him. And my voice seems so calm, but my energy sends out in a way that he knew that I was happy. And so we drove and we didn't realize there's no food in our fridge. And then we drove to the grocery store. And the whole way there, I was so angry. I did not speak a word. And he's trying to make a conversation with me. It's like, hey, how's your day? And And I'm like, fine. The way how I talked, it's me suppressing my anger and not trying to explode. So in that moment, I'm like, I'm not doing you good. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm not trying to fighting with you. You can be for that. But in front of the grocery store, my husband was like, Sha, why are you so angry? And when he said that, I knew the whole time I was angry. But when someone else is calling me being angry, I'm like, no, I'm not angry. What you're talking about?
I hate that.
Exactly. And then, in that moment, especially, I was blaming him for not being proactive in terms of like making sure we eat dinner on time. So in that moment, I was blaming him, right? And then he said, well, Charles, your anger is inside of you. You need to work on that. It's in you. You're responsible for your own anger. And in my head, I was triggered. My trigger was amplified. I'm like, what do you mean the anger is inside of you? You contribute
You did
to
it.
anger. You did it. Yeah, you did it. I was so angry. And I was like, why don't you wait in the car? I'm going to get the groceries or go back and cook and eat. And I went back. I cooked the fish. I had the fish by myself. I did not offer anything to him. and he came to, I was so calm, sitting in my meditation table. And then he come to me. He's like, Sha, what's going on? Like, you want to have a talk? And you're so angry. And I was trying to calm myself. I'm like, what do you mean I'm angry? Look at me. I'm so peaceful. I'm calm. I was so in denial. And the other day, this morning, essentially, and I was meditating, sitting in stillness, trying to really allow my shatter, whatever thoughts, stories to come to the surface. And I realized how brilliant my mind was, to be able to create so many little stories in that moment in such a fast speed. I was so amazed by myself in a way, but then I also triggered a conversation which I knew that I needed to apologize to him. But like energy attracts energy. It's I don't want to see I want to be responsible for my own anger, but at the same time, we're kind of dancing with each other every single night, right? In terms of emotions.
You used the word responsible, and so I know I heard that about. Do you know what it really means? Like our ability to respond. That's what differentiates us, right? So when we talk about, am I pausing? Am I taking that moment to respond instead of reacting? So that's what you were saying out there. What's my responsibility? And I thought it was interesting when they broke up the response and the ability. And like, now it makes sense. It's my ability to respond.
Yeah, it all makes sense when you kind of look back, right? You are in the moment. And that's so hard. I'm curious, like what triggers you the most, especially as a people manager and Google, like as a manager, I can't imagine, especially I think when you have people reports to you and also you need to report to someone else, you're kind of in the middle, right? And it's such a difficult place to be from my perspective. But what triggers you the most? Anything that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I think I can I'm trying to think of like a recent example of when I was angry. I think there are a few situations, right? Sometimes when you feel like you can control them, sometimes when you can't control them. And actually, if I can quickly make up in my mind about what's controllable, what's uncontrollable, it's easier to deal with. But especially if it's a controllable one, that actually is where I get most of my anger from. Because if it's uncontrollable, I'm like, okay, fine, it's beyond your control. You can do nothing about it. What I've also noticed is that I was in a closed meeting. We were just closing our Q1 results. I was presenting at that meeting. I knew what the meeting was supposed to be about. I was prepared with everything that had to be done. I presented at that meeting, but something, I think the way the questions were coming up, again, I walked out of that meeting thinking it was a really bad meeting. It was really bad. There were two people who worked closely with me on this and preparing this material together. And it's a general thing I do after I do a big meeting. There's like a 15-minute sync after so that I can quickly tell them how the meeting went, what happened, any action items. They're familiar with all that. So then, so the 15-minute sync started. Now I'm walking out of a meeting. I haven't had a chance to process my thoughts. I'm going to be meeting these two folks who worked really hard on putting this material together. So I walk into the room and I catch myself saying, I'm really angry, but it has nothing to do with you both. And I just said that. I don't know where it came from, but I think I just ended up saying that. And I just felt, okay, now I don't have to hide how I'm feeling. And let me just go through my whole emotion. It's not to do with. And then I went through, as you know, I was asked this question. I didn't see the support for this. Somebody challenged me on this. And I'm not sure what the right number was. So I replied in that meeting to say, let me look into it and confirm. So a few things that happened in the meeting were, are you sure this is the number? And I had to get back saying, let me get back to you. We looked into this. We followed up with action items, etc. But I remember, I think it was the next day, maybe, after we replied to all the emails, sorted them all out, one of the person who's working on this said, so how do you feel the meeting went yesterday? And I was like, actually, I think it went really well. those questions were good questions, and all the answers we gave were right answers. But I was just like, so okay, so you're not too angry anymore. And I was like, actually, I'm really happy with the meeting. So it's interesting also, right? Because you're in the motion, you're in the meeting, you're being challenged, you feel like you're not being trusted. But I know from that meeting onwards, from that incident, I guess my thing now is to be able to be as honest and transparent as I can. Be able to say, I'm angry, I'm sad, or even if it's something to say, I have a lot going on at home right now. I may not be fully attentive. I think it's okay for us to be able to share some of these things with each other at work. Because otherwise, I'm, again, like the whole thing about facts and stories. Otherwise, I'm trying to guess why Shah is in this tone today. When I say good morning, she generally asks me about my weekend. Why is she just jumping into the topic? Or she must be angry with me because I didn't respond to that email yet. So those are the stories. So,
oh, I have that. Yeah. I love that. It almost got me to think about the story I just shared, right? Like, what if I told my husband, I was angry because I feel just so hungry and not in the mood for a conversation, but don't take it personally or it's not about you. Allow me to just rest and allow me to process my thoughts and now let you know when I'm ready to talk. I think that would ease the conversation later on when we had at the grocery store. And it's not even about sharing a tactic, but it's all about being aware of what emotions we all have in each moment, which is challenging if we are in this constant go, right? Like in Google, I remember we had those back-to-back meetings. It's almost impossible to pause and, tune into our own emotions. So interesting. I'm curious, like what specifically triggered you in the moment? Because you said that you walked out of the meeting feeling angry. Like, happened?
I think it was, so I'm saying this number was 209. And somebody's like, are you sure? Because I have 250. So that's actually Shah, you're making me think about this. My ego came into play, right? Because I know my numbers, I know what I'm doing. You're questioning me in front of people more senior to me. You're making me look bad. So I guess that's why I was immediately angry. It's interesting. I didn't think about this until you said that. Because when you're like, what made me angry? I was like, he has all the right to question, right? Yeah, you're saying 209, I have 250. It's a fair question. Of course, that's what the meeting is about. Why is it making me angry?
Yeah, because you mentioned the second day you feel like they asked the right question and you were not angry anymore. So in my mind, it's like, what exactly made you angry that so quick? Just, not angry anymore. It must not be anything that's so personal or interesting that you mentioned about ego, because I think that's what gets us in trouble sometimes when we trigger, because it's we make a lot of things about ourselves. We internalize a lot of things, and then we get triggered. Earlier, I was talking to my own coach, and I told her that I get triggered nowadays when people do a lot of things, because I'm in the process of like transitioning from doing to being, like try not to put a bunch of things on my calendar. But when I see other people doing a lot, I get triggered. And I'm like, why is that?
Yeah, that's interesting. They're not expecting from you. You just see them do something. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, when you are on LinkedIn or social media and you see a lot of people like self-promoting or like, doing a bunch of things, and they're just on constant to-dos.
Yeah.
Is what I had back then at Google, and I get triggered. And I started to dive a little bit deeper. What happened? Is it because I'm not doing enough? I'm judging myself. I'm comparing myself to that person.
Yeah.
Or is this inevitable healing process for me because I'm basically shedding whatever I do not want to carry on with me anymore, which is like this very strong masculine energy, and started to nurture myself. Or what else? I'm started to kind of uncover that in my coaching session. And I realized there's so much wisdom in that process. Just dive a little bit deeper, which is what you just did. Like, why did I even get angry in that process? But we sometimes don't go there because it's such an uncomfortable space to be, especially if it really has something to do with our ego. And that might make us even feel more uncomfortable, or even more angry, or even more triggered, because whatever line we created is coming from ourselves in that process,
I agree. Yeah. I think, we've been talking a lot about the things that are not going well, but I wanted to share an example of, when you observe good around you too, and how that changes. I'm actually sitting in a building today where this incident happened. So again, meeting a long-time Googler over, I think it was last Friday, for lunch. And then the two of us talking about, hey, how things have changed, and reminiscing the past about, like, remember the good old times and how it used to be, regular conversation. It's so different now. It's not the same now. We finish our lunch, we're walking away, and I see somebody coming to pick up all the dishes, the empty dishes that were stacked up. So there were like these two black bins that were overflowing with dishes. And I'm thinking I'm such a nice person. So I walk up to this person and I say, thank you so much, with like the biggest smile on my face, thinking I've done my duty here, or, been kind. And I start to walk away, and I see this other Googler who's in the middle of eating their lunch. They get up and then they help them lift this bin and put it on the cart. And for a moment, I was like, wait, their kindness still exists. We're all still good people. It was such an easy thing to do. It was so easy for me to sit and talk about how things have changed and they're not good, etc. But, it's easy to complain. But where am I in this whole situation? But the reason I'm sharing this story is to say that remained in my mind. And I obviously shared it with so many people after. I told my husband, I told my friends and family, like, I noticed this person, how kind of them to do this. But then the next day, I remembered this, and I was sitting at a restaurant for lunch, shared table, bright sunlight, and then so I got this nice bottle of sparkling water. And the person sitting next to me says, oh my gosh, I'm going to get that bottle of water just for that blue bottle. It's so pretty. And then as my husband was grabbing another beer, like, can you just buy another bottle? And he's like, why? He gets it. And I give it to her. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's not what I meant, but thank you so much, and so generous. And so they walked away. We're sitting on the table. Somebody else walks up and says, I noticed that. I'd like to buy you both drinks. So you do see like how kindness just goes around. And it's like, this is so interesting for me. That whole moment over 2 days, I was like, look, like I saw somebody do a kind action. I wanted to do something nice to make somebody smile. I bought them a bottle of water, $6. It's not a big deal. Somebody else saw it and said, hey, I'd like to buy you both drinks because I noticed that. So it was just interesting for me to see, how our unknowing little actions can help or are noticed. So
yeah, I think it's interesting you use this. Because I think when we talk about triggers, we can easily go down a dark path and just talk about what triggers us and get us really annoyed. And
Yeah.
about kindness, I think it's kind of the same thing. It's the energy kind of energy exchange.
Right. Yeah.
It's so contagious, right? Like, it's same with a trigger. You trigger me and I'm annoyed and now I'm angry. I'm going to go trigger someone else to make that person
Yeah.
angry. And then that person is going to trigger another person to make that person angry. And we go around, right? Same with the
Yeah.
we're talking about.
That's true.
Where we can bring our kindness and love and compassion to someone. And that person feels so grateful and everything. All of a sudden, the sky is blue,
Yeah.
it's shining, and that person is going to do something a little bit kindness to another person. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so interesting. Somehow, I do remember when I was on Google or in the corporate system, I noticed more negative emotions around myself. I don't even want to say I noticed those negative emotions because I don't think I was in that position to notice my emotions. I just go around.
Yeah.
And it's funny, recently my husband and I were watching this show on HBO called Succession. I don't know if you watch it.
No, but I have to watch it because I hear about it all the time.
Yeah, the acting is fine. I think what we laughed yesterday was Ron, one of the actors, basically, his father passed away and he was grieving and he was so angry but he was in denial and he's like, I moved on, not angry anymore. But then he became the co-CEO of the company. And what he did was he just go around and fire people. And so when he's in the conversation and he's not happy about the conversation, or he's not happy about the direction of the conversation, he feel like he's out of control and people just respect him, and he just fired that person. And so in a day, he fired most important people in that company. And so my husband and I were just laughing. Oh God, he just go around and fire people. Like imagine, in the real world, this can happen too. Like some leaders can potentially have a bad day or whatever happened in the home. Unconsciously, they're bringing that emotions to work and then just, criticize whatever decisions other people, managers, leaders make. And then that goes in circles, right? Because that people who get influenced by that person's energy can feel so triggered and angry. And then his or her team in the team show up in that energy too. So this is what I was trying to explain. And like when you're talking about the kindness, which is ideal word that I would love to live in that word where kindness just go around. But in reality, I do notice it's actually the opposite most of the time.
Yeah. I think, Shah, I guess it depends, right? Like what you choose to pick up on too. I'm not saying I'm always happy, I'm always kind, I'm always doing the right thing. It just depends on the moment you're in. So I noticed that act. I happened to notice that act and of like the Googler being helpful. That stayed with me. There were two of us who noticed it. And I remember I kept bringing it up to my friend to say, did you see that? I was so kind. And she was like, I know. And then did you hear about this? But in my mind, I'm still thinking about that. So it just depends on, what phase you're in, what you're noticing, what you're picking up on. But you're right with the negative energy too. Yeah, it goes around the same way. Or at work, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Again, I feel like we're making choices. I also do think that I'm in a very privileged...
Can I just interrupt you quickly?
Yeah.
Because we are talking about we're all making choices. And I think that's such a great point. We do have the power to make choices on what we wanted to focus on, what we wanted to see with our eyes or our heart or our mind when it comes to storytelling, right? Because I think our conversation, it's almost like you're representing this little angel, I'm representing this devil. Like, hey, I'm joking about that. I think we all have the ability. We all have the ability to be the angel and the devil in any moment, right? Like, I think it's almost like we didn't plan for this, but it's almost like we just took this role and role playing a little bit, right? Like you're kind of representing this version of any of us who can just focus on the good side of things and then amplify that by sharing that with the people. And I was representing, it's funny, I'm wearing this black sweater. It's almost like a devil, right? Like I can focus on whatever that just did not go right and gossip, right? Like I tell people, hey, look at that leader being so angry and that, and in corporate system, it's like, this whole entity of people, human beings, and that amplify too. So I love how you kind of like conclude, right? Like we do have the power to make decisions. Sometimes we feel like our emotions is so powerful, strong that we're being managed by our emotions, but it's actually the other way around because our thought process control how we feel about things.
Yeah.
I love because exactly the same story you tell, right? Like the Google helping other person, you can tell the other side of the story too,
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, the dishes were overflowing. It's so annoying. We've got resources. We've got this. And it was so
Exactly.
untidy and messy. Yeah.
Exactly. Especially during the time that Google is cutting cost, you can
Yeah.
definitely go on that path. And
Yeah.
I love that. It's almost like every single moment we get to decide. It's like, I don't know if you probably heard about the story about the two wolves in ourselves. Like, there's a wolf that's being fed by compassion, love, and kindness. And there's another wolf inside of ourselves that's being fed by greed, anger, whatever that's dark power, right? And we have a choice on which wolf we wanted to fade in each moment, because which wolf we decided to fade is going to grow bigger, stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this so much, this conversation. What do you think makes us human being?
I think it's this power to notice, or observe, or feel. Right? Just taking that same story too. I think community. So I can actually give you an example of something that happened just yesterday. So bad day, long story short, it was something I did or happened in my personal life. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I sleep so well. Yesterday, I kept waking up the whole night, checking my phone to see if there was a message or if there was any update on a certain thing. And then as I was walking and I kept thinking, the whole thing of like, why am I angry? Am I sad? Would I have done something differently? And I can't explain it to myself because I'm going through the whole moment, through the whole experience. Like, no, I think I did the right thing here. Again, the conflict between values and the results, right? Did I follow my values? Was it the right thing to do? Or was it going to get me the results I wanted? Not necessarily. The two don't always match up. And then the whole thinking around it, I actually, as I was diving in, I said, you know what, I need to calm myself down. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to find somebody you recommended, and maybe I'll Google for something about how to calm yourself down as I'm driving into work. I actually ended up calling my sisters instead. And I said, I'm actually sad about something that happened yesterday. And as I was speaking to them, I was like, wait, it's really not that bad. I was like, I wish I'd spoken to them before I slept, and I would have slept better then. But I was thinking about just like what makes us human. It's these connections, it's this community, this ability to feel, whether it's anger, happiness, joy. I think that's how I think about it. But I know there's a lot of corporate listeners here too, and you've had so much conversation around AI. Like, what does AI mean? Will we need humans anymore? Is AI going to solve all this work for us? And, are we all going to be jobless? I was thinking about, AI will do some things, but when you think about, again, the difference about what makes us human, the way AI works is based on historical data. It works exactly how history has. So if you just want history to be repeated, AI works really well. But where humans come into play is like, I have this new idea. I have a better way of doing this. I have thought of something new. AI is not going to do that thinking for you. That's where humans come into play. So to me, I feel like that's what makes us human, being able to see, plan for the future, do things differently. The conversation we are having, right? Why did I get triggered? Why do I not get triggered? Yeah. What's changing?
To me, we human beings, we have soul, right? Like, the ability to envision things, the ability to connect to something bigger than our own thought process.
Yeah.
That's so special. And the connection we're making now, right? Like I was talking to my husband too, and he was talking about, like in the future, there's going to be a war between AI and the human beings. And if we lose and the human are going to just disappear, the motivations, like how people are motivated by certain things. And he started to think of what motivates AI. How do we even know like what motivates AI to do any action at all? So we kind of dive a little bit deeper into that conversation. But to me, I think the war is not going to be between AI and the human beings, but it's going to be between the light and darkness. Because when I see light and darkness, is meaning what we just talked about, like, the decisions between whether we decided to act or communicate out of compassion, love, and kindness. You were in tech for 15 years. I'm curious about some of the things that used to trigger you in the early years, your career, and no longer trigger you nowadays.
I think it just depends on how you define success. Right? So that changed for me a lot, a whole lot, because that was my trigger. So yeah, you look around you, and then I remember actually when I started working, it was completely different. It was more of like, oh, till I have a baby. I'll earn some money till I have a baby. But somewhere along the line, that excitement of, oh, I'm independent, I'm financially independent, went away into changed into I want more. And I think that almost would make me, I guess that was my trigger or make me angry at work. Like, why them? Why not me? Why is somebody else promoted? I'm just as smart. Why not here? So the focus was all about work, work, work. Like, what do I need to do to be liked more at work? Be more in their mind, value me more at work, whatever that meant to me. I remember having a conversation then with a Googler who's left now, VP in finance. And then I was having breakfast with him. And then he's talking to him and he said, I wish I'd left Google 2 years earlier. And I was like, why? He said, it's just a personal situation made him leave Google at that time. But it became so bad that he was forced to leave and said, I wish I had like those 2 years. I'd left earlier. I would have had those 2 healthy years instead. But I was thinking, I said, you're VP of finance. You have regrets. And I was like, what would I do to be in your position? And the person was comparing himself to his friend who was, they both graduated together, but this person gets to swim every day. And would say, what, this person just walks out during lunch and goes for a swim every day. I'm like, wait, but you have career. Like, how successful is that? And then he was explaining me, he took this plate, we were eating breakfast, and he said, Samya, think of your life as almost like this plate and decide what you want to do with it. How much of it is work and how much of it is life and whatever you want to do, friends, social, however you want to divide it. And he said, and you can say 100% is work, and that's totally fine. But as long as you're making a conscious decision around it, to say, you know what, I'm going to focus completely on work. And then everything else is noise. Oh, why are you not spending more time, or you're losing friends? But you're like, yeah, I know. I made this conscious decision to focus on work. I think some of those conversations made me think a lot more about how I plan, how much time I'm spending at work, what I'm working on, what I'm doing outside of work too, because there was a period of time when I said, I know things are not going to go too well for me at work because there are these things going on at home that I need to manage. It was a very hard decision for me to make. But then the next time when that thermal list came out, or when people around me who were, getting larger scope or whatever it was like, I know, but remember we talked about it. It's like a conversation to myself to say, we remember, see how this other thing that you wanted to focus on is actually improving, and that's what your goal was. So I think now when I look back, I actually had this conversation with like my team too, and we're talking about career conversations. Like, what do you think about it? How should we have these conversations? Like, think about what your non-negotiables are. Begin with that, and then decide what career or success means to you. And I do that regularly. What's my non-negotiable? My non-negotiable is my personal health. I've gone through certain experiences and I realize how valuable it is. So that's my non-negotiable. And when I say personal health, it's physical, mental. And I guess that's how a lot of my decisions are made. So those are the things that trigger me less now.
So it's almost like you went through the process to be more honest with yourself. The career that seemed to be very important to you at the time, getting promo and getting people to like you. And, as you're telling the story, it's almost like to feed your ego.
Yeah.
It's almost like now you realize that's not that important comparing to your health. And now you're just being so honest with yourself and then prioritizing health. It's so interesting because I've seen myself included in the early days at Google. I unconsciously prioritize work, overworked a lot. And I didn't, because I worked so much, didn't even think why I worked so much. Now I'm like, oh yeah, why did I work so much and deprioritize all the other stuff, my health, my relationship, my friendship, fun, traveling and all the stuff that was actually more important to me. And it's like peeling the onion, right? Like one layer by one layer. And then you realize, it's such a fun journey when you kind of turn inward. What happens when we talk to ourselves? And I love the story how you talk about you start to live in your own head and talk to yourself, and then you start to talk to your sister and you get different perspective. Because I think what happened when we talk to ourselves is our ego is trying to prove ourselves that we're so right in the story that we created ourselves.
Yeah.
And we just confer the storyline, which might be illusion that we created in the first place, is true, and that does not help. So getting that perspective is always helpful for us to get out of our own ego and helping us to see different data points. Because to me, it's like a lot of triggers are things I need to dive a little bit deeper into, because there might be some healing that need to work on that I didn't really notice.
Yeah. Or Shah, when you just speak it out loudly, right? I think in my conversation with my sister, I don't know if they were really saying anything. It was just me when I was saying it. Suddenly I was like, it sounds so small. It sounds so not important. And it's as I was speaking, like, wait, I didn't, I'm okay. And then so a lot of that is, that's why they talk about like journaling or meditation. It's like, right, when you start writing down your thoughts, be like, I'm so angry because this happened. As you're writing, you realize, like, there's so many times I stopped writing, I'm like, it's okay, it's not that big a deal, as I try to put it down in words or in writing.
Yeah, like see the pattern. Because I remember one of my previous colleagues on Google, and she was being impacted by the layoff too, and she reached out to me and she's like, Sha, I need help. And I was like, what do you need help on? And she's like, my monkey mind is just really making me crazy. I don't even know what I'm thinking about. I'm so tired all the time because thinking, I totally get it, right? Being impacted by layoff and a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so the takeaway of our conversation was basically she will start to journaling. There is no even journal prompt needed. She just write down whatever thoughts come into her mind.
Yeah.
And after a while, she will start to kind of review and see what patterns she has, and then help her to kind of like start to go a little bit deeper, question those thought patterns.
Yeah.
Who is that? And then is this coming from somewhere that I need to really examine deeper? So I think it's always good to start that journey if you're not there yet. I know we're out of time too. I could continue the conversation for another hour, but I wonder if there's any one question you would offer to audience to contemplate on. If, see if they're the ones just like myself or yourself, easily get triggered.
Yeah.
Any question or advice you want to share with them?
I think what I would say is, when you're in a situation when you're not able to decide what to do, should I take vacation? What will they think of me at work? If I leave right now, am I leaving too early? Do I work from home today? The common questions. I think of it almost as a choice. It's you're making a choice, and then you have limited energy. So when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And then are you okay with what you're saying no to? That actually has helped me take vacation at times, but not take vacation at times, right? Because it depends. Yeah, I'm going to be taking this vacation. It may appear a certain way at work. I may not. What am I saying no to? And it's actually not that difficult. So I think of a lot of times about like my worst case scenario to what's the worst case thing that can happen. And when you actually sit and think about it, it's really not that bad. It's all in our heads. So yeah.
So you're talking about the bigger decisions, and that can also apply to little moments. For example, sitting in a meeting, being triggered and feeling anger, and you got options and choices to make, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to share with the team that you're actually feeling a bit angry or suppress? And then there's, you got your own personal choice there,
Yeah. Or when you want to speak up at a meeting, you're like, do you really want to speak up because you think you're adding value? Or it's because you want to look good. And so many times, like, no, I just want that other person to know that I'm smarter than this other person. We all go through, like, even with all the inner journey, inner conversations, we're all humans. We go through these thoughts too. So.
Yeah, I think just have fun with that. Like, as we're okay with that, and then consciously making that decision and just, hey, I just want to look good today. That's fine.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah.
It's like something you want to put on some nice outfit, right?
Yeah.
That's okay as long as you're conscious of that decision. And because otherwise we easily criticize ourselves, right? Because we might say something and then realize, oh God, my ego is doing this and that. And then started to internalize and criticize ourselves, which is not so good because it leaks the energy out of ourselves. So thank you so much, Somya. We're out of time, but appreciate all the honest authentic conversation, the energy you're bringing to the show today. And then I know we're going to stay connected for hiking, yoga together. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the friendship.
Thank you. Thank you, Sha. It's always a pleasure talking to you, learning from you, listening to you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you are a conscious leader in tech, sales, and beyond, check out my free Soul Scientist community at shaharli.com/community. Sign up if you resonate with the message. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your colleagues and friends. I'll see you next week.